Breaking news, guys. Vice President Kamala Harris, who's the presumptive presidential nominee for the Democratic Party, has finally agreed to an interview with the media. Okay, that's not exactly breaking news, but the real headline should be Donald Trump finally got under Kamala's skin by saying that she's not smart enough to do a press conference. Fox News' Aisha Hasni talks more about it right here. Check it out.
I think a campaign official yesterday told me that Biden's weakness was walking, hers is talking. So that is the strategy here, trying to get her to face the cameras. He also yesterday addressed reporting that he's been frustrated with his campaign as new polling shows that Harris has taken a small lead. But the Trump team is calling that a honeymoon period that will go away as soon as she opens her mouth.
She's not doing any news conference. You know why she's not doing it? Because she can't do a news conference. She doesn't know how to do a news conference. She's not smart enough to do a news conference.
So the pressure campaign, it seems to be working. Harris has now agreed to the first presidential debate moderated by ABC on September 10th. And she finally spoke to reporters, us, on the Tarmac in Michigan shortly after Trump's press conference.
Glad that he's finally agreed to a debate. I'm looking forward to it and hope he shows up.
Are you open to more debate?
I am happy to have that conversation about an additional debate for after September 10th.
When you're going to sit down for your first interview since being the nominee, do you have any update on that?
I've talked to my team. I want us to get an interview scheduled before the end of the month.
I mean, sure, Kamala Harris finally had the guts to face reporters for, what, 60 seconds, saying that she's finally going to have that interview. But did you guys notice how nervous she looked? So here's my question for Kamala. Why don't you just do the right thing and apologize for your part in destroying the country, resign in disgrace, and let Speaker Mike Johnson take over as the interim president until Donald Trump is sworn back into office? What do y'all think? Will Kamala Harris answer to that question? Anyway, that whole less than 2-minute moment with actual reporters didn't earn Kamala Harris much praise from her critics. And honestly, guys, I don't think it should have. I mean, come on. She answered a handful of easy questions on the airport tarmac while campaigning in Michigan after former President Donald Trump held a very lengthy news conference earlier that afternoon. The Washington Examiner's Kaylee McGee White and former Manchin Communicators Director Jonathan Cott discussed this exact evasion strategy that Kamala Harris is doing, and they're comparing it to Donald Trump taking questions from anybody. What did they see? Well, liberal media under the thumb of the White House. As McGee put it, Kamala Harris doesn't want to answer these questions, and thanks to the liberal media connections, well, she doesn't have to. Just check out the discussion here.
And her entire campaign strategy at this point seems to be fake it until you make it. She wants to be shielded. She doesn't want to have to answer these questions. And it's remarkable that not a single leftist media outlet has pointed out that if you go to Kamala Harris's campaign website right now, there is not a single page dedicated to a policy position. It's only donation tabs. So if you as a voter wanted to learn what Kamala Harris's policies were, you would not even be able to at this point.
Right. Now, guys, as my uncle put it, she doesn't have to answer any questions because the idiot media will still not have asked her a question. One reporter finally asked Harris to respond to the criticism regarding how she was not giving an interview or a formal press conference since she became the presumptive Democratic presidential nominee. And probably because of Donald Trump's goading, Harris answered that they're planning to get an interview scheduled before the end of the month. Yeah, and of the month, guys, we're barely halfway through it. What do you think that means? Asked whether he was worried about Kamala Harris, Donald Trump said, "Give me a break."
Mr. President. The number of people that you've been drawing to her events.
Say it.
Are you worried at all about the size of Harris's crowds?
Oh, give me a break. Listen, I had 107,000 people in New Jersey. You didn't report it. I'm so glad you asked. What did she have yesterday? 2,000 people? If I ever had 2,000 people, you'd say my campaign is finished. It's so dishonest, the press. And here's a great example. I had in Michigan recently 25,000 people, and 25,000 people we just couldn't get them in. We had in Harrisburg 25,000 people, and 20,000 people couldn't get in. We had so many. Nobody ever mentions that. When she gets 1,500 people, and I saw it yesterday on ABC, where they said, oh, the crowd was so big. I have 10 times, 20 times, 30 times the crowd size. And no, they never say the crowd was big. That's why I'm always saying turn around the cameras. I'm so glad you asked that. I think it's so terrible when you say, well, she has 1,500 people, 1,000 people, and they talk about, oh, the enthusiasm. Let me tell you, we have the enthusiasm. The Republican Party, and me as a candidate, but the Republican Party has the enthusiasm.
So yeah, it definitely does not look like Donald Trump is afraid of Kamala Harris, whether it be her supposed impressive rallies or facing her in a one-on-one. I don't think Donald Trump is afraid. Now, on the other hand, conservative X users were just downright insulted by what they considered crumbs and softballs from the media, as well as Kamala Harris's vague commitment to scheduling an interview by the end of the month. So according to the radio host Ari Hoffman, Donald Trump spent a seemingly endless amount of time taking unvetted questions from the press and days doing radio interviews and phone calls with reporters. And this is the best that Kamala could do. Will the media accept these crumbs? Daily Caller White House also made a very good point. When Biden's political career was on the line, his team scheduled 2 sit-down interviews and a press conference in the span of a few weeks. He's now sitting for another interview before Harris has even done one. This next one is from Red State writer Bonchi. Kamala Harris finally takes a few questions in passing, speaking for less than a minute, and you'll be shocked to learn they were all softballs, with 2 of them being, "Tell me how bad Trump is." The press isn't coming back from this. There's literally no credibility left. National Review senior political correspondent Jim Garrity, he was all over it. He said, so the Democratic nominee, who has not done an on-camera sit-down interview since Biden withdrew July 21st, says that she will try to do one in the next 23 days. Attorney Costas Moras took a shot at Kamala Harris, saying, "1 interview in a month? I know writing and memorizing a script takes time, but come on." And National Review editor Philip Klein, he kept it short and sweet. Before the end of the month, laugh out loud. Yep, they're pretty much just laughing at Kamala's answers at this point. Some of the comments that I've read online have even started comparing Democrats now to cooks. They say they used to call them cooks, now they call them Democrats. In that Tarmac moment with the press, Kamala Harris said that she's happy with Donald Trump agreeing to the ABC presidential debate on September 10th. But when they brought up that Trump has also proposed additional debates on Fox News and NBC next month, Harris would not commit to anything specific. Instead, it was just kind of a non-committal, "I'm happy to have that conversation with regarding an additional debate for after September 10th for sure." A reporter followed up with, "But Trump proposed 2 more. But what did Kamala Harris say?" Like I said, happy to have that conversation. You know, she just avoided the question. But the real question is this the kind of person that deserves to be the president of the United States? Just drop a quick yes or no down in the comments, guys. While you guys are at it, you can also show your support for the channel by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Totally appreciate you guys. All right, so guys, even the New Yorker, a major liberal media news outlet, published a piece calling on journalists to ask Vice President Kamala Harris questions about her policies ahead of the election so that voters know who she really is. The New Yorker staff writer Jay Caspian King wrote about Harris's campaign strategy, saying that it involves her staying away from the press and waiting for former President Donald Trump to make a mistake. But he argued that it is the media's job not to let the Democratic candidate get away with hiding prior to potentially assuming the most powerful office in the world. King even agreed with Republican vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance's assessment that she's been dodging the media. I mean, sure, there was this informal Q&A on a tarmac in Michigan, but come on, guys. I think the American people deserve a lot better than that, especially as Kamala Harris has not held a formal presser or sit-down interview since emerging last month as the presumptive Democratic nominee in place of President Biden. Now, as J.D. Vance has repeatedly pointed out on Twitter with the hashtag #Where'sKamala, has taken almost no question from reporters and has spent most of their time giving stump speeches at rallies. But it's not just Kamala's fault. The media seems to be bending over backwards to treat her with kid gloves. According to King, the press has handled Kamala Harris quite gently. To date, there have not been particularly loud or widespread calls for her to sit down and answer questions, as there were for Biden after his catastrophic debate. So yeah, what's up with that? I mean, even the Associated Press caught flack for trying to defend Kamala Harris's decision to evade the press. A headline from the AP said, "Meet the press?" Hold that thought. The candidate sit-down interview ain't what it used to be. Then they went on to proceed to say how for journalists, the larger lesson is that their role as presidential gatekeepers is probably diminishing forever. Writer and columnist Amanda Fortney, she reacted to this and said point blank, "This is not okay. And it's journalists' jobs to say so, to hold politicians accountable." She also said that she's embarrassed for the profession. National Review editor Philip Klein, he added, "Imagine being at AP and making the case against presidential candidate answering questions." And like Fortney, Klein said, It's beyond embarrassing. Fox News really shook things up with their claim that the liberal media minions need to do their jobs. But maybe from their view, they are doing their jobs, stopping Donald Trump from becoming president, and no effort is being spared. They're going all out to help Kamala Harris win, even if it means overlooking some big red flags. I feel like no matter what Kamala Harris does in interviews or press conferences, the outcome would be the same. Friendly media are likely to toss her easy questions, and even if Harris stumbles, they're probably still going to spin it as a win for her. Trump even pointed out that she seems to avoid press conferences, that she can't do a news conference. But there's a bigger picture here that might be missing. They say that Harris could do an endless loop of interviews and press conferences, and it probably wouldn't even matter. She'll still choose friendly outlets where Democrats with press passes will throw those big juicy softballs. If she swings wildly and misses, they'll still declare it a home run. Case in point, the ABC debate on September 10th. Meanwhile, America is seeing some pretty wild events, like an assassination attempt on a Republican candidate and some serious security questions and threats around Donald Trump, but these are not making the headlines anymore. In fact, social media is even labeling the Donald Trump assassination attempt photos as misleading and altered. The media seems to have their eyes on the prize, making sure Donald Trump does not get back into the Oval Office, even if it means completely glossing over some serious issues like threats to the former president. They say that Republicans are overheating political rhetoric and they're sparking violence with their words. But when Dems and the media repeatedly declare Donald Trump a threat to democracy and he narrowly avoids death, and when a foreign power also assigns an agent to kill him, they don't even care. I mean, just imagine how they would likely handle similar situations if the roles were reversed. If any Democrat faced similar threats, you can bet that it would be major news everywhere, even sparking national security debates. But with Donald Trump, the story just moves on pretty quickly. There's no uproar about foreign threats, and the media doesn't seem too curious about why certain dangers are targeted toward Donald Trump but not toward Biden or Kamala Harris. It's pretty clear there's a double standard here on how stories are covered and how they're discussed depending upon the political stakes involved. So my question for you is, do you guys think that it's fair how the press is treating Kamala Harris versus how they're treating former President Donald Trump, or maybe I should say straight up ignoring him? Drop me a quick comment, yes or no, down below, guys. I think you're seeing it too. And if you guys appreciate the information and the analysis on this one, then I highly recommend subscribing to the channel and check out our other video where we talk about how Kamala Harris is taking ideas from Donald Trump's campaign and trying to pass them off as her own. Seriously, guys, you got to check that video out after this one. As always, thank you for liking the video. Thank you for subscribing and sharing this video. I'll see you on the next one.